Number 4, it says, during the week of August 16, Nancy Walker worked 35.25 hours and earned $581.70. How much did Nancy earn per hour? Do not use a calculator. Round your answer to the nearest cent. So, she earned $581.70 total. She worked 35.25 hours. I'm finding her earnings per hour. So I'm going to take the amount she earned divided by, which is what the word per means, the hours. So 581.70, whoops, my 1 isn't in there, 581.70 divided by 35.25. When we divide with decimals, our divisor, the number out in front, has to be a whole number. It is not, it's a decimal number. So I need to move my decimal so that it's on the end. So I'm moving my decimal 2 places, which is the same thing as multiplying by 100, making my divisor 3,525. If I move my decimal 2 places on my divisor, I also have to move my decimal 2 places here. So 2 places over puts it right after the 7. So I'm going to have 5810170 decimal point. So 58,170. Now I'm rounding my answer to the nearest cent, so tenths, hundredths, and I actually have to go to thousandths so I know where to round. Tenths, hundredths would be the nearest cent, and then one more place for my rounding. So I'm going to start out here doing my division. 3,525 into 5,817. Looks like it's just going to go one time. 3,525. I have to subtract 2, borrowing 9, 2, 2.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Bringing down my 0 here. 3,525. I'm going to divide that into 22,920. 3 would go in there, it looks like about 6 times. So 6 times 5 would be 30. 6 times 2 is 12, 13, 14, 15. 6 times 5 is 30 plus 1. 6 times 3 is 18, 19, 20, 21. Change colors here so I can see where I'm at, and I'm going to subtract. 0. 12 minus 5 would be 7. 7, 1. Bring down the 0 after the decimal. So 3,525 into 17,700 looks like about 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 2 is 10, 11, 12. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 would be 26. 5 times 3 is 15, 16, 17. Whoops, I didn't line my numbers up very well. 0,771. I brought down my other 0. So 5 times 5 was 25. 5 times 2 is 10, 11, 12. 5 times 5 is 25, plus 1 is 26. And then 5 times 3 is 15, 16, 17. My board's a little bit off. I need to go ahead and subtract. So, can't subtract 5 from 0, can't borrow from 0, so I borrow from the 7 and make that a 6, which makes that 10. Borrow from the 10, make that 9, which makes that 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 9 minus 2 would be 7. 6 minus 6 would be 0, and then I get zeros there, so I'm bringing down my other 0. I'm trying to take 3,525 into 750. It doesn't go in there, so I have to add a 0 and bring down the next 0. So 3,525 into 7,500 is going to go in there 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry my 1. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. And 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. And we don't really have to subtract to get our remainder because we're far enough that we can then round. Since there's a 2 on the end, we're just going to go ahead and drop that because we're not going to round it up. And so in money terms, we'd have $16.50. Again, after you do your long division on your paper, go ahead and check it with your calculator. So $581.70 divided by 35.25 gives me 16.502 ... So $16.50 is where we rounded it. So that looks good. Number 5, we're really not going to have room to do our division. Amy Jenkins invested $6,425 in the Pacifica Equity Mutual Fund. Each share costs $6.66. How many shares of Pacifica Equity Mutual Fund did Amy purchase? Do not use a calculator, and if necessary, round to the nearest tenth of a share. And so in this case, I am trying to find how many shares she's purchased. If this was the total amount invested and each one of my shares was $6.66. So I have to take my $6,425 and divide it by my $6.66. Again, if I'm dividing on my paper, my divisor has to be a whole number, and it's not, so I have to move my decimal 2 places and use 666, which means I have to move my decimal 2 places here. Right now it's right on the end, which means I've got to go 2 zeros over and put my decimal. So when I divide here, I'm going to have 642,500 point. I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, so I need a 0 for the 10th spot, and I also want a 0 for the 100th spot, so I will know where to round to. And then my decimal is going to go straight up there when I go ahead and do my division. So 666 is not going to go into 642. I have to take 666 into 6,425. So 6,425 looks like it's probably going to go in there about 9 times. So we're going to go ahead and put a 9 up here. 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 6 is 54, plus 5 would be 59. 9 times 6 is 54, plus 5 would be 59. Again. And then I got to subtract. 5 minus 4 is 1. Borrowing, making that 12, I get 3. Borrowing, making that 13, I would get 4. And bring down my 0. So I have 431 for my remainder, brought down the next 0. 666 into 4,310. Let's see, 6 would go in there about 6 times. Let's try 6. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 6 is 36, 37, 38, 39. 6 times 6 is 36, so I'm going to get 39 again. And if I subtract here, I get 4. One. My lines are off. 3. 314 if I subtracted that right. I got to bring down my next 0. So 6,666 into 3,140. I'm going to switch colors because my lines are getting all messed up here. 6 into 31 about 5 times, but that's going to be too big, so I'm going to say 4 times. Let's try 4. 4 times 6 is 24. 24, 25, 26. And then I'm going to get 26 again. So when I subtract 6, 13 minus 6 is 7, and that was 10, 4, 476 if I subtracted that right. So I add the next 0, 666 into 4760, 7 would be 42, 4, let's try 7. So 7 times 6 is 42, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, and then I'll get another 46. And so when we subtract 8, 15 would be 9, so we get 98, and add another 0. 666 into 980 goes in there 1 time. We don't really need to subtract because now we can round to the nearest tenth, and we would say 964.7, since we're not going to round that up, is what it cost per, or how many shares, oops, how many shares we purchased. And so if we go ahead and double check that, 6,425 divided by 6.66, we have 964.71, which is what we got when we divided. And again, since there was a 1 after the 10th spot, we didn't round it up, so we said 964.7, as I scribbled all over everything. Okay, number 6 is where we are. Last week, the delivery van for Johnny on the Spot delivery was driven 856.8 miles. During the same period, the van used 49.5 gallons of diesel fuel. How many miles per gallon did the van get during the week? So again, notice we have that miles per gallon. We're taking the miles divided by the gallon. Do not use a calculator if necessarily, round to the nearest tenth. And here again it tells you the average is found by dividing the total miles by the total number of gallons used, which is what miles per gallon means. So we're going to take 856.8 miles. We're going to divide it by the 49.5. Again, our divisor has to be a whole number, so we've got to move the decimal one place, making that 495. Means we also have to move it one place here, which makes it 8,568 decimal point. Again, this one says round your answer to the nearest tenth, so we need to add the 0 for the tenths and one more for the hundredths so that we can see where we're going to round to. So we're going to take 495 and we're going to divide it into 856. Doesn't look like it's going to go 2 times, it's probably just going to go once. 1 times that is 495, and then we're going to subtract, so we get 1. That'll be a 7. 15 minus 9 is 6, so we get 361, and we bring down the 8. So 495 into 3,618. Looks like it'll probably go in there 7 times. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 9 is 63. 4, 5, 6, 66. 7 times 4 is 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. 8 and 6 is 14, so 34. So we have 3, we have 11, so that would be 5, and then we have 153. And so now I've got to bring down my 0. So that's going to be after my decimal point there. And so 1,530 divided by 495 would be about 3 times, it looks like. 3 times 5 is 15. Oops, over here. 3 times 3 is 27, 28. 3 times 4 is 12, 13, 14. And if we subtract, we are going to have to borrow again. So 5, 12 would be 4, so 45, and bring down our 0. 495 into 450, not going to go in there anytime. And so in this case, when we round it off to the nearest tenth, the 3 is in the 10th spot, there's a 0 behind that, so 17.3 would be our answer as what were our miles per gallon. We got 17.3 miles for every gallon of gas. And again, if I go ahead and take 856.8 and divide it by our 49.5, 17.30, so 17.3 is what we did.